so the very first part of the file pack SSG-038 Part B was some updates to the independent rear suspension frame that was the Part A file drop of SSG-038. And so in that we added some updates. We added, the first thing actually I'll show you when we look at the 4-link, but we did add motor mounts. We had some requests for adding in motor mounts so you didn't have to fully scratch build those. And so taking a look here, you can see we gave you a new version of the lower control arm mount that has this provision built in for these motor mounts. And so we gave you two versions, one that sits basically at a 45-degree angle for supporting if you're putting a V8 or a V6 in this. And these are adjustable.
Yeah, okay.
So the new lower control arm mount has this sort of female pin here, and then the motor mounts just slot into that so you can position those where you need. So like I said, we have the V8, V6 version of that, and then also one that has this mounting plate, the engine mount plate, vertical for inline engines. And so that covers all of that. One note about this, everything is the same except we gave you a new cross member that's to be used with if you're using the motor mounts. And this one's actually just it has the locating tabs reversed, so they're on the bottom, because obviously on the previous release they were on the top and you wouldn't be able to get the cross member located with that motor mount in the way. So we flipped those to the bottom here, as you can see. We also released a couple different wheelbases. So now we have the medium wheelbase and the long wheelbase version as well. And like I said, I'll be putting out a chart that shows you which wheelbase frame you need depending on which mini truck you are planning on putting this under. Next we'll take a look at the 4-link version of the mini truck chassis. So again, we've given you the same wheelbases, so short wheelbase, medium wheelbase, and long wheelbase. And given the adjustability of the front suspension, since you can move these suspension mounts forward or backward a good degree, these 3 wheelbase versions got us where we needed to be for several different mini truck kits. But then looking here, I'm going to hide some of the other ones. We also gave you just the rear section. The front section would be the same. So in the Part A release, we gave you a front and rear section. The rear section was, of course, specific to the independent rear suspension version. The front section will be the same. So if you have a kit where it makes more sense to just graft in the front and the rear of the suspension rather than use the whole frame, then you can use these pieces instead. And so I mentioned when we were looking at the other frame here, the new shock towers. So one of the issues I was coming up against was trying to install a turbo SR20 motor into the frame with the stock shock towers that are, the shock towers from the Part A release. They're just too, the engine was too wide because of the way the exhaust manifold and turbo sits on one side and the intake manifold sits on the other side. So what we did on the left here, you'll see this was the shock tower from the Part A release. If you need more width, if you're putting a turbo motor in this thing, or if you're putting a V8 or a V6 and you need some additional width, we did a low profile shock tower, which really kind of cuts away a lot of the meat on the inside and should give you, I think I measured about 3.5 additional millimeters of width there. So that should help with wider engines. The other thing you'll notice is we decided on this one to do, since we gave you coilovers on the independent rear suspension version, on this one we decided to go with air suspension. So we gave you 3 different versions for front and rear of air shocks, and so I'll kind of show you what those look like. Since the front A-arms don't actually move, since they are designed to kind of stay in one place for the ease of assembly and building everything so that it's square and all 4 of your tires sit on the ground. Since we have the 3 these sort of cheater hubs where you can just change the ride height by moving your wheels up or down between these 3 positions, what we did for the front is just kind of designed the air springs so that you know, they look correct. So we're looking at the medium drop right now. If we look at maximum drop, you can see those are like fully compressed air springs. The medium drop, they're kind of halfway compressed, or sorry, I guess halfway inflated. And if you look at the minimum drop, those are basically fully inflated. And something I'll point out here, if we look in the top of the air shock, we did give you holes in all of the air shocks so that if you want to plumb these things and run wire for your airlines for that little bit of extra detail, you certainly can. Coming around to the back here, this is a Ford 9-inch rear end. We've given you a few different versions of this that you can use depending on what your needs are. The sort of standard one is just the 9-inch with the brackets already installed, and so everything that you see here in blue just prints as one piece, and this is designed for this frame so that you don't have to worry about locating these brackets properly. They're just already located in place for you. But we did also do, for those of you that want a little bit more customizability or you want to use the axle on other projects as well, we gave you just a standard version without the brackets. And if I hide the axle flanges here, we've given you just sort of a generic recess in the end of those axle tubes, but these axle flanges will also fit. This one just has our standard wheel mount on it, so that the same wheel mount that we use on the back of all of our scale speed garage wheels, this will fit that. Or if you have kit wheels that you want to use or whatnot, that have a female, sort of a pin that goes into a female mounting point, we've given you that version of the axle flange as well. And then last thing we did was also, if you want, you know, if you have a different width of axle that you need, we've given you just the center section with pegs, and you can locate styrene or aluminum tube over those pegs cut to whatever axle width you need. We also gave you axle tubes. These would be pretty easy to, if you want to go this route as well, when you bring this into your slicer, if you need it a little bit wider or a little bit narrower, you can pull it into your slicer and scale it up just in the long axis here to get that additional length or shorter length to fit your needs there. And then also gave you just the brackets as well. If you're building axle tubes from styrene or aluminum, you can just slide the axle tube into the 4-link brackets here. We've also given you, so you'll see this is a triangulated 4-link setup. And so eliminates the need for a panhard bar or anything like that. And because the length does change a little bit based on what ride height you're using, we've given you 3 different lengths of each of those 4-link bars as well. And those are labeled, matching labels to the springs, right? So if you're doing a medium drop spring, you want the lower and upper 4-link medium drop. Pulling back here a little bit. I'll just show you here the back in the rear. We did the same thing. Actually, in these in the rear, because we no longer have the sort of cheater lowering hubs in the rear, and just the solid rear axle, these the different versions of the rear air spring are physically longer or shorter to get you the ride height that will match the front. This also then gives you the opportunity, if you want to do something like, you know, more of a 70s look, like a 70s street machine look, and you want to have more drop in the front than in the rear, that's definitely doable just by kind of mixing and matching the ride heights and the air shocks here. So that is a look at the 4-link chassis. We've given you some strut braces as well. These are designed around the sort of overall width between the shock towers for this chassis. But this is another one where you could scale these in your slicer if you need some additional width out of it. I think you can probably get a decent amount of extra width or narrowing in your slicer just by scaling in only one dimension. And if you guys want, after we do this walkthrough, I can pull some of this up in a slicer and just show you how that works, if some of you aren't familiar with how to scale things only in one direction in the slicer. Cool. Yeah, we can do that after this. So a handful of different styles of strut braces here. So we have a couple different tubular styles. Style A looks like this, and we've given you a tall or a short version depending on what engine you need to clear and kind of what the specifics of your build are. Style B, pretty simple, welded tube style right there. We've also given you just the plate if you want to scratch build some other style of strut brace. You can certainly do that and just have this plate that locates here on the strut towers. And then this plate is used in conjunction with the other couple styles, the forged styles. So we have forged style A, again in 2 different heights, and a sort of setback style as well here. And then lastly, just a few sort of additional JDM dress up goodies. So these subway handles you'll see sometimes hanging from the, you know, the grill or the rear bumper or something. So we're giving you a few different styles of these just to kind of add some fun realism to your JDM builds. We did these such that these should be print in place 2-piece designs. So the slicer will read this as one piece because we put these tiny 0.01 millimeter pins in here. But effectively, these pins should either not print at all or print so small that you can just, they easily break, and then your subway, you know, your little charm on the end of the subway handle on the end of that strap there will, you know, can pivot and rotate just like they would in real life. So a few different styles there. and gave you just the strap too if you want to bend the handle portion up out of some rod or whatever to get something custom. And then lastly, some tow hooks. You see these a lot sticking out of the front and rear of JDM cars quite commonly. So a few different styles of tow hooks. And so that is a look at Part B, the Part B release of SSG-038. Now, I did promise you a little sneak peek at the rims. These come directly as a member request from one of our founding members, actually. Requested them a long time ago, and shamefully, I'm just now getting to them. But he has a Honda CRX in real life and the CRX model kit, but not the right wheels, and so he wanted some CRX rims. And so we're doing, the bonus pack will be these CRX rims and the stretch wall tires, the stretch wall Advans. And actually, I can show you those two. I still have to add the lettering into these, but you can see that stretch wall profile there of the tire. So if you want to go with that look for the tire, you now have that option. And like I said, that'll be a bonus file pack for Autotech and Master Mechanic members.